I'm sorry, which of them? Oh, okay.
This one I come out of my overall clinical research on the issue of tradition and culture and how it affects women. For instance, over the years, I've been looking at a particular tradition around the Suka area in Ifamo, Roma, and then the Igala, where tradition has been over the years mobilized or manipulated in order to subjugate women. So in this part, I'm trying to ask questions whether this kind of a tradition where, for instance, when a woman transgresses by engaging in extramarital affairs and she will be punished by ancestors, or where a woman should maybe help the entire family by offering them gifts and the ancestors to punish them. I want to see whether is it peculiar to these particular people in Nigeria or are there other places where such traditions exist? If they exist, is it actually that ancestors punish women, or is it something that men have over the years it can also be applicable to men. So this is the debate. So listen and enjoy yourself while you ask constructive questions. Thank you. Our first presenter should be Adebo.
Yes, ma. It's online.
So you have 10 minutes, please. Unmute yourself. So you can go or you can. Start doing it. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Adebola.
Yes, yes. Yes.
It's your time to present.
Okay, thank you very much. I was thinking of talking to somebody because the thing was not very clear here. Thank you. My name is Talabi Adebola from Tai Shodani College of Education, Omijebu, now known as Sikiru Adetono College of Education, Science and Technology. I'm presenting with Mrs. Adigun Birunke from Tai Shodani University of Education, Ijagun. The topic is a historical discourse of gender politics in Nigeria in the 21st century. A historical discourse of gender politics in Nigeria in the 21st century. The paper discusses the participation of women in Nigerian politics and it examines the historical trend of women participation in politics from the colonial era through the post-colonial era. The cultural, religious, and traditional hindrances to their participation were also looked at. They also look at the current trend in the 21st century and vis-a-vis ways of encouraging women, more women participation in politics. So the structure of the presentation is thus. I'll first of all look at the historical discourse of gender politics in Nigeria, right from the pre-colonial era, colonial era, then post-colonial era. Then I look at the challenges and how we can go forward. For the pre-colonial era, we had was an era where women were actually recognized and given adequate chance to participate in politics. If you look at the history of a big empire like Borno, we had women, like we had the Queen Mother who played a very prominent role in the administration of the empire. And then looking at Zaria too, which was founded by a woman in the 16th century, Queen Bakwa Tukuru. And then he founded the empire, and he was succeeded by her daughter, Amina, who was a very valiant warrior. He built walls around the city, and they defended the city. So she also contributed meaningfully in the political era in the area. And in Yoruba land also, we have the Obas who are dealing with the Yalude, Yaloja, and all those things. The women also participated fully in their administration, and even in Ife, there was a woman leader, a woman king who also ruled at that period. So what I'm saying in the sense that during the pre-colonial era, we had women who were actually participating in politics. They were given a chance to participate, and they really did their best. We have women like Emoton of Benin, Moremi of Ife, Omu Oke of Osomari. They all contributed immensely during the pre-colonial period in the politics of their period. Now, during the colonial period, that was when we had a lull in the participation of women in politics. At that time, they were denied franchise because that was the era where we were talking about elections and all those things, and then men were given more prominence during that period of the colonial period. But towards the end of the colonial period, around the 1950s, we had some women in the southern Nigeria who were given franchise. At least have three women who were appointed. We had three women who were appointed into the House of Chiefs, Mrs. Olufunla Ransom Kuti of the Western House of Chiefs, Margaret Epo and Jeanette Mokelu in the Eastern House of Chiefs. So during the colonial period too, we had women participation, but it was not as much as it was during the pre-colonial period. And during the pre-colonial era, we had also women who also participated effectively. Mrs. Wuraola became the first woman member of the Federal Parliament in 1960, as early as that. And in 1961, we had Chief Mrs. Margaret Epo, who contested and won Eastern Nigerian House of Assembly till 1966. Mrs. Jeanette Mokelu and Mrs. Epo Young contested elections and won. They became members of the Eastern House of Assembly. So but it was not so in the North, because in the North, I think because of their culture, women were not allowed to participate in politics. During the Second Republic also, we also see women participating in elections to the House of Reps and the National Assembly, both into the state assemblies. So during the military era, we also had women being given chance to participate in politics. Under Buhari-led administration, the first formal quota was introduced by the federal government as regards appointment of women into governance. At least one female was appointed as member of the Executive Council in every state, and all states complied. Even some had two. And in the 1990s, 2 women were appointed deputy governors in Lagos State and Kaduna State. So the loss of women were also, it wasn't as if they were really not participating, but then maybe we look at the rate later. During the Third Republic also, during the 1990 elections to local councils, women were recognized and they became chairpersons of local governments in western part of the country. 2 female deputy governors in elections were 2 female deputy governors were elected, both in Lagos and then where else now? So Ms. Akrele was the only woman who won the seat in the Senate. So what I'm saying here is that At that time, even during the Third Republic, women were also participating. And during the Babangida transitional period, women were given a chance to participate in politics. At least Shoneko appointed 2 female ministers. Abacha also had a number of female ministers. General Absalam also had 2 women at the federal executives. So between 1999 and 2003 too, the House of Reps had 12 female members, which is a 3.3% of the total 260 members. Men made up 96.7% of the whole House. In 2007, 628 out of 7,160 candidates, 608 out of 7,160 candidates were women, making up 8.8%. Then 3,141 for National Assembly, and only 209 were women. So then in 2019 also, we had 235 women in Senate, who ran for the Senate seats, 101,900. In the same year, 133 women ran for the seat for the House of Reps out of 4,680. And in 2023, 18 political parties fielded candidates. 2 senators for 3 for House of this contest, female president. Who was a of allied people's. Yeah. Thank you. So sorry, I'll wrap up now. So we saw that women were also participating in politics, not that much. In the era of ranking, Nigeria was not performing very well as to what was agreed on at the Beijing conference, where the attention should be given to women in politics. And even Nigeria said they'll give women 35% participation. But unfortunately, they couldn't meet up to that level according to all these analysis that they have done. But then we may ask, why is this so? Why is it that we have men participating in politics very low? One of them is patriarchy. That's a culture of patriarchy. We are male-dominated society where we feel that men should be seen and men should be seen and heard. I will not be that seen and heard. So we believe that women's position is somewhere in the house. And then this area of stigmatization is another problem. That a woman who is in politics must be wayward and not responsible. And we have these political meeting schedules. The time they hold their political meetings are usually very odd. Women will not be allowed, we will not have the chance to attend such meetings. Then financing was another factor that was affecting participation of women in politics. During the primaries, they make use of a lot of money that may not be available to some of these women to offer. Then political violence is another factor which is preventing from participating fully in Nigerian politics. Nigerian politics is riddled with violence all over. And then we also have religious group and cultural barriers, which is affecting some women from participating. For example, in the North, there are some areas where women will not be allowed to participate in politics. So all these factors were things that affected the participation of women in politics. But notwithstanding all this, we believe that women can still have a way of participating fully. As some are suggesting that there should be a legislation for women, that a certain percentage should be reserved for women so that to participate in politics. But I think this suggestion may not be all that good, because I feel it is, if you have the charisma, go for it. You have to contest for elections. That's why we call it elections. You have to contest for it and win. So even if they are giving quota, they still have to be up and doing and be ready to participate. Then I believe that then again, there should be enough sensitization of women into politics. They should be told that all those things that are about patriarchy, about culture, are no longer relevant now. Saying that the home of the women is in the kitchen is not that relevant. Women are also, they are well educated, they are well, and they have talents. We have seen people like Okonjo-Iweala, who participated very well when he was given appointment. So they should also encourage others to do so. And again, we also feel that they should have the confidence to get out and vote, and then they should rally their colleagues when election comes, because in most cases, women do not support their female folks when they go out for. I think based on this, we have seen the discourse of female participation of gender participation in politics in Nigeria, and you have also tried to see what factors actually hinder them from participating in politics. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
That is traditional practices and certain of
Excuse me, I can't hear you clearly, sir. I don't hear you clearly.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, sir. We appreciate you for your wonderful presentation, and we plead that you stay online as we would like to engage you further on your topic.
Okay, ma. Thank you. I will.
Okay.
I will.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah. I am Dr. Margaret Sonia Okone. I'm co-presenting with my Oga at the top, Dr. Sekinat Koladeroju. We are both historians from Kolada State University, Ibadan. And the topic of our discourse is traditional practices and the social responsibility roles of indigenous women organizations in 21st century Nigeria. And the abstract reads thus. That's my work. What?
Next slide, or you give us the...
No, I have it here. For the benefit of others. So the abstract goes that some African traditional practices are inimical to the rights and status of the women folk as freeborn in the society. And some of these traditional practices have lingered. Although there exists pre-contact indigenous women organizations which were formed majorly to protect the interests of women, a great number of these obnoxious practices are still being perpetrated unchecked, even in the 21st century Nigeria. The pertinent question this paper seeks to address is why these practices still exist despite the economic, psychological, and psychosocial effects they bring upon the development of women. We utilize both primary and secondary sources, and the case studies were based on selected communities in Nigeria where these practices on women, selected communities in Nigeria, okay? So we argue that the continuous perpetration of these practices on women is a blatant disregard of human dignity and poses a serious threat to women's development due to the inability of these indigenous women organizations to enforce their social responsibility roles. We recommend that in order to ensure substantial contribution by women to sustainable development of the nation at large, certain debilitating traditional practices against women should be eradicated so that they can explore their full potentials. So we have our keywords as traditional practices, social responsibility, indigenous women organizations, and development. Introduction. Traditions, just like culture, defines a people. And traditions embraces all societies, practices, a structure of governance, and the social relations which dictates the manner in which individuals and groups organize their lives. The practice of these traditions is often sustained because of the perceived significance of importance or the meaning and attachments to the origin of the affected people. Disobedience or ignoring these practices can bring a full wrath, or is believed to bring, a full wrath of punishment upon an entire family, village, or group. We agree that traditions are not entirely oppressive to women. but they are also not entirely friendly. The continuous practice of some of them is inimical to existence of women, as the purpose and intent have become increasingly distorted and abusive, especially by women upon women. In time past, to ensure the well-being of women in pre-contact Africa, societies, women groups and organizations were set up. The purpose was to address imbalances against women in the society. We term them as imbalances because they are done or they are meted out on women, but the same thing in the same instance of men is not even thought of, let alone carried out. And these imbalances were, they varied according to society, the society involved, and ranged from widowhood rights to ownership of land or properties. Sorry. The indigenous women organizations were small in size at that time, and they lacked the pomp of today's women organizations, but they served the important purpose of addressing the psychological, emotional, and even financial requests that was needed to support the cause of fellow women in the society. Historically, we know that they existed in most parts of pre-contact Africa. From the eastern part of Nigeria, for example, we have the much revered Umuada group. From the southeast or south-south, we have the, that's among the Efiks and the Ibibios, we have the group that is known as Nkai Banison group. They are just like the Umuada, of course. And then in Yoruba land, the Olobirin, Ile, Yale, Yawo, and Yomoshu. Please forgive me if I'm not pronouncing those names well. This paper is co-authored, so my other part is Yoruba. All right, associations are variants of the Indigenous Women Association in the Southwest. So much as the focus of this women's organization was on women, they were also concerned with the proper functioning of the society, as they believed that women's rights could be secured by addressing the broader issues of human rights of women and men in any oppressive society. So ensuring the stability of the society was their social responsibility. The methodology used for this paper was qualitative. Data was collected from selected areas of Nigeria. As I said, we mentioned the eastern parts of Nigeria where the Umuada group, basically the Igbo states and the Delta, the Igbo speaking parts of Delta where the Umuada groups function. And then the Southwest, of course, and the target population here is women indigenous organizations at the grassroots that have the sole jurisdiction of women in a specific community. We use guided interviews, guided observation, and secondary and scholarly materials as sources of data as well. And the data collected was content analyzed. Conceptual clarification. We have 1,000 women, indigenous women organizations operating the world over. This is because the 21st century apportioned, a large changing role to women as global leaders, and this warranted the establishment of organizations like the African Indigenous Women Organization, which is a continental-wide, non-governmental organization. Its members are composed of African indigenous women representing NGOs, community-based organizations, CBOs, and other grassroots organizations who undertake social and economic activities for their own gain. We also have the African Indigenous Women Empowerment based in South Sudan. In Nigeria, we have the National Council of Women's Societies and several other non-governmental organizations scattered around the globe. But that's not our focus. Our focus is, the grassroots, that the context that we are using, is the women organizations at the grassroots community level. These organizations have women as the sole jurisdiction over the local affairs of the women in their specific communities. They are the governments, as it were, recruitment is done by them, and they have no class consciousness and are not funded by the government. Also, the indigenous women we are referring to here are any group of women native to a specific place. So what is social responsibility? First of all, it is a moral obligation, a moral commitment. In a general sense, Planken defines it as social response as the ideological notion that organizations should not behave unethically or function amorally, and should aim instead to deliberately contribute to the welfare of society or societies which are comprised of the various communities and stakeholders that they operate and interact with. But in the sense we are using it, it is the social responsibility of an organization is for the impact of its decisions and activities on society and the environment through transparent and ethical behavior that contributes to sustainable development, including health and the welfare of society. Expectedly, the indigenous women organizations are supposed to use their power of jurisdiction to protect women in their domain, but this seems not to be exercised sufficiently. So the rationale here of the study is that the study knows that any attempt to liberate women as particular maltreated citizens and valid social group must begin with recognizing the responsibility clause of women's organization. Such efforts will help in demanding a reassessment of some of the ways of life of the people that form the traditions in the society. And as posited by Okeke, the struggle to improve African women's social status and rights cannot be really accomplished without a substantive legal base. So we argue that some of these traditional practices and the failure of the exercise of the social responsibility role of the women organization has edified and sustained some of these practices, and there is a need to provide solution. So we raise a question, are there laws to protect women in Nigeria, let alone at the community level? Yes, there are. First, the UN Fundamental Human Rights is for everyone. CEDAW, which is a convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, exists. And the CEDAW optional protocol, which is a clause that gives a people the right to report their governments if they are not doing what they should do to protect the women. There's also the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. And this section 42 of the Nigerian Constitution also prohibits discrimination against a Nigerian citizen based on sex. So why are we here? Okay. Ring states that simply facilitating access to the standard legal venues has not brought significant or consistent improvements in the ability of indigenous individuals or peoples to deploy the law in the realization of their goals and the aspirations or the protection of their rights. The CEDAW periodic report of the convention identified women's perception, goals, and expectation of themselves as a limiting factor in enforcing laws intended to protect them from discrimination. And he went on further to say that only enlightened and educated women who are aware of the laws and policies in place and know their self-worth can only hope to reap from the benefits under such laws. So women themselves, the study has found that, are the perpetrators of these unkind acts against fellow women through the actions and inactions of these indigenous women organizations. If the women organizations were fulfilling their social responsibility role, there probably will be no need to call for some form of legislation, as this study is doing, to protect women. In a work titled, Are Laws the Appropriate Solution? The Need to Adopt Non-Policy Measures in Aid of the implementation of Sex Discrimination Laws in Nigeria, it is submitted that harmful traditional practices are the most common acts of violence against women in Nigeria. So what are the effects of non-implementation of social responsibility role by these indigenous women organizations? The theories we utilize for this study will explain it. We use two theories, which is Martin Seligman's positive psychology theory and Martin Seligman and Sibyl Meyer's learned helplessness theory of psychology. The first aims at the scientific study of human flourishing and focuses on individuals and communities' positive aspects and strengths as a path to well-being. It points out that individuals have three basic psychological needs: to feel positive emotion, engage in activities that give life a meaning, and have positive relations with others. The second theory of helplessness postulates that it's a situation that occurs when, after an individual who has experienced a stressful situation repeatedly, believes that he or she is unable to control or change the situation, and so they give up. The experiences of these women leaves them with serious psychological, economic, and other devastating effects. So the way forward, the United Nations position on women development is clear. They are even captured in the Sustainable Development Goals, and SDG 5, for example, is especially focused on women and girls. Its aim is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Hence, suggestions are made on the area of access to restorative justice, supports, education, pension and resettlement, truth and reconciliation, as well as justice to end all violence against women. So discussions are being held in several forums. In fact, as of 1985, the forward-looking strategies declared the whole 10 years between 1975 and 85 as the decade for women. It has brought about international networking among women, as in the case of the Vienna Tribunal, and has opened up discussions, as I mentioned earlier, where women share their experiences across different cultural context. Therefore, it is time for indigenous women organizations in Nigeria to mobilize forces and address their concerns. Conclusion, the intervention of this study is the need for the review of activities of the pre-contact indigenous women organizations towards the emancipation of women in their domain, rather than stressing the compulsory compliance of certain traditional practices that will not ensure the realization of important and progressive aspirations like the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. These grassroots organizations have women as the sole jurisdiction over the local affairs of the women in their communities. They are the governments, as I mentioned earlier, they run their organizations. This means that they have control over what can be allowed to happen to the women in their domain and what they can disallow. Consequently, they are the best agency in the circumstance that can initiate change or abolish outdated and mundane practices affecting the women folk. The study advocates for implementation of available laws to be spearheaded by the indigenous women organization themselves as a fulfillment of their social responsibility roles. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Stephanie and Professor Margaret. Doctor. For that presentation. After the presentation, we will untie certain notes concerning certain affirmations he made, and then we'll look at it if possible holistically. So we are calling the next person. Okay, Jonas is not here. Gender, culture, and politics in Africa. Igbo meaning a democratic group. 699.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mrs. Chemela Mbalisi from Alex Ekwueme Federal University, Ndutu Alike. My discourse is on gender, culture, and politics in Africa, Igbo women in the democratic group. This study was triggered or is triggered by the political disparity that exists between the men and the women in Igbo land. If we can all remember, in the last election, during the APC primaries, a lady, I think Ms. Sudu Kennedy, was vying for contesting for the position of the president under APC. But on the day of the primaries, she stepped down. Also, if you look at the campaigns that have been going on, you will notice that the women, they participate fully in these campaigns. They organize the campaigns, they go for the campaigns, they even head different organizations in their various parties. But they are not given this opportunity to lead. So we are looking at, when we talk of politics in this discourse, we are not just looking at politics as in governance, state governance, or the country governance. We are looking at both politics and the position of women in leadership positions in Igbo land. In the pre-colonial time, the women participated fully in politics, even though that the traditional Igbo land is one that encourages men to dominate in the society, but they still gave out little opportunities to women to still rule. We had the Omu in Delta State in Onitsha. These people ruled as women kings. There was the Umada, there was Umobu. The Umada and Umobu, they participated in peacekeeping activities. They made decisions for their communities. Religiously, the Ezenwai existed. This Ezenwai, they take care of spiritual activities of the land, and they still make decisions that even the Igwe himself goes with. In the colonial times, with the coming of the whites, with kind of missionaries into Igbo land, they came with the Bible that preaches that every woman should be submissive, that everyone should be under the man, and that the woman should be seen and not heard. And their teachings affected the activities of women. They used the men force to work in the administration, while they used the women to work in the farms, to cater for the children at home, bring food for the family. After the colonial period, these rules affected them. Now, in the democratic group, we know that democracy itself encourages fairness, equality, equity. It encourages everyone to participate, even in politics. But what do we have now? In the political arena, are these women competing very well with their male foes? I've said before that they are registered members. In political parties, they are registered members. They participate in every political activity that goes on in their political parties. But at the end of the day, you notice that they are giving the smaller part of the positions, they are giving lower ranks, like to stay in the state house or federal house. They're not giving these positions like the president. What will happen if a woman becomes the president of this country? In Igbo land, I know of Abia State, there is Imo State, there is Ebonyi State, there is Enugu State, there is Anambra State. Apart from Etiaba that became the governor, she was an acting governor between the period of 2006 and 2007. No woman governor has emerged as the governor in this part of Igbo land. When we look at the community setting, we have the women. They are always available in community development, but you will not see them head political or lead in any political group that the men force are in. They always relegate us to the second position in the land. Are these things supposed to occur even in a democratic rule? For example, in the church, I'm an Anglican. We have our priest. We have the wife of the priest. In any organization, in any kind of committee that is being formed, where there is a man and a woman in the committee, the man will always be made the chairman and the woman will be made the vice. In a women conference that has, this is an organization for the women, they will still make a woman the chairman of an organization that the woman is heading. In the higher institutions, let's look at the SUG. We teach the children in class. We know what a female student can do, and we know what a male student can do. If you teach a class, you notice that sometimes, most of the times, these female students are those that do better in class than the male folks, but they will still give them the position of the vice president. Why? These are leadership issues that's affecting us in Igbo land. That should not be. And there are so many things that are causing this that are causing these things. There are so many things hindering these women from participating fully in politics, or from being leaders, or from heading positions that has the male folk in it and the women folk in it. For example, okay, we know of funding, we know of other issues like money, but let's look at the cultural issues and the gender issues in this thing. Gender, as we all know, is just a socially constructed roles that the society on their own gave to a man or a woman. Like, this is what you should do as a man, and this is what you should do as a woman. And culture is an integration of people's way of life, their values and norms. Culture and gender issues is one of the biggest problems that is hindering women from participating fully in politics. Take, for instance, the Igbo land, we all know, advocates for the man to be at the top. We know that the man is the head of the family. The man is the head of the church. The man is the head in everything. Yes, we know. But then, there is a man and there is a woman in a family. If a woman wants to become the governor, they will look at, auntie, your husband is still alive. Oh. If you become the governor, your husband will be what? They will always ask that question. Where is your husband in this? And the man is the woman looks at these issues and she steps back. Or once they see you rising up, they will tag you a promiscuous person, that you are either sleeping with some people that will give you that position, or that you are a prostitute. They just see as a prostitute. There is this woman from our place that her husband is late. She started moving out with politicians, started participating in political activities, and one time she wanted to contest for a position, but they said, this Ashawo, that's what is she going to contest for? She killed her husband. That is why she wants to be in that position. She killed her husband, so she will come out and to come and rule people. Or they will tell you she bottled her husband, so her husband will not talk. How can a man be alive and the woman will be will be ruling over the man? How can the man be alive and the wife will come out to come and contest for a position? Or they will tell you the woman is the homemaker. If you leave, who will take care of the family? Who will take care of the home? For example, if a woman is vying for the position of a vice chancellor, ma, please, can you stay late nights? Ma, please, can you take care of, who will take care of your home? Ma, please, can you go for scheduled meetings? How are you going to meet up with all these meetings? How are you going to meet up with your home and your position as the vice chancellor? So the jealousy that comes from the women force, they'll be like, you want to be the president, and I'm here. I'm not a fellow woman. What do you have that I don't have? These are different cultural and gender issues that keep hindering these women from participating fully in politics or in any leadership role. So I will ask that we should conduct extensive mobilization. So we should establish support groups for these women to encourage them. See, when a woman is coming out, she's not your enemy. She's not coming to show you that you cannot do better. You should support her, because all this thing is just for a position for a woman is a position for all of us, and not just for a particular woman. They should educate both the male folks and the women folks to explain to them that, see, these cultures that say the man should be on top and the woman should be below, it does not necessarily mean that the woman is not being submissive to you. The woman can still be submissive to you and still become whoever she wants to be. So this my topic is just trying to look at those cultural and gender issues that are hindering women, and what we should do, like we should educate women more and the male folks more, so we stop all these issues in Igbo land. Thank you.
Thank you. That is really wonderful about issues preventing women from active participation in politics in Igbo land since 1999. I still have my own questions. So the last we are coming. Now the last presenter is Chima Uchechi. Uchechi will discuss on indigenous notions of sex and sexuality in Edda culture since the pre-colonial era. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chima Uchechukwu. I'm from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. I'll be talking about the indigenous concept of sex, sexual and social relationships in Edda culture since the pre-colonial time till now. Well, this is a work in progress. Just trying to test run some things in the historical field. I'm not in history. And I would like you to pay attention and then maybe guide me in any way you know you can. So I want to start by defining some terms. Sex, first, sex has two different meanings. It can be referred to as the physical differences between people who are male, female, and intersex. A person naturally has his or her sex assigned to him or her at birth, based on physiological characteristics, including their genitalia and chromosome composition. Sex can also mean physical activity, which often includes sexual intercourse. Sexuality, based on what I've defined about sex, further expanded the implication of being male or female in the biological concept of it. Sexuality is a reproductive mechanism as well, and the basic biological drive that exists in all species and can encompass sexual intercourse and sexual contact in all its forms. It is a condition of having a sexual nature, of experiencing sexual desire. Comprehensively, the World Health Organization maintained that sexuality is a central aspect of being human throughout life and encompassing sex, gender identities, roles, sexual orientation, eroticism, pleasure, intimacy, and reproduction. Sexuality is experienced and expressed in thoughts, fantasies, beliefs, attitudes, values, behaviors, practices, roles, and relationships. Broadly defining social relationships are the connections that exist between people who have recurring interactions that are perceived by the participants to have personal meanings and interconnectedness. Across human society, the indigenous concept of sex, sexual, and social relationship differs in different cultural environments in Africa. In the African culture, in Nigeria too, sex and sexual relationship can be very sacrosanct, and there's a respectable phenomenon guiding it everywhere you go to. Societies all over Africa have different interpretations and values for sexual union, such that while others see it as a sacred and impinging on group norms and values, others may see it as an affair that has nothing to do with the societal values. It depends on what you believe about it. In Nigeria, there are sexual factors that are considered an abomination or a taboo, as our chair had said when she started, that there are some women who will decide to have an affair outside and it's an abomination, and some things will be done to them. You know, there will be laws that will be against it. So, but some factors are highly acceptable and practiced in some other society, particularly the Edda social environment since the pre-colonial era. Edda is a subgroup in Igbo land situated in the southeastern part of Nigeria. In this peculiar culture, a married woman or married women are allowed to have extramarital affairs with different men with no reparation. Even when there is procreation in the process of the sexual intercourse or sexual affair, the seed of the affair belongs to her or the man who paid her bride price. Hence, this relationship affects the social relationship of the people therein in both negative and positive ways, especially the social factor of marriage, whereby there is always serious and careful scrutinized research before a marriage or relationship is consummated. You can't just walk up to a young girl and say, you're beautiful, or I love you, or I like you, because you don't know if that person is your sister from a mother, and that mother she was giving birth to for another man. So if the act of scrutiny is not done at any time in the social relationship of the people, an abomination or sacrilege is bound to be committed, which will be to the detriment of the parties involved. The social relationship is not only in the case of marriage, but dating and sexual relationships among the people in the Edda community. This sex and sexual relationship in this community must have been encouraged by the fact that the community practices the matrilineal culture, which is quite similar to the matrilineal community of the Khasis ethnic group of Melaya in northeastern India, where the descent and lineage of children is traced through the descent of the mother, just as I am now. People don't ask me, who is your father when I go out? They ask me, who is your mother? And they ask me, what is the lineage of your mother? And I will tell them. So they trace my lineage through my mother. When my husband came to marry me, the first question they asked him was, who is your mother and where is your mother from? And they had to, and if by any chance he was from the lineage of my mother, even if it was not the same father or anything, as in like maybe from another community, that will be the end of the relationship. We don't have anything to do with each other. What is the objective of the study? 1, to understand the societal social implications of sex, sexual and social relationships in Edda culture. 2, to understand how the matrilineal structure of the Edda people encouraging, I want to term it SSS, that's sex, sexual and social relationship. 3, to understand the role status of the women in matrilineal society in Edda. Research questions. Why is it a norm in the Edda society for a woman to have more than one sexual partner? 2, what is the status of the children that are born from such relationships? 3, what is the implication of this SSS on the relationship among the children from different fathers? 4, what is the different implication SSS on the communities where SSS is practiced, in which one can see his or her sibling in another community? Let me give you an instance. Let's say this is Amango community. I get married to this man and I give birth to 3 children, and this man gets me angry or beats me up. I'm angry with him. I leave this community. I go to another community. I marry another person I love. I may not even marry the person. I'll just stay with him and I procreate 3 children for this one. Then this one gets me angry. I move to another community and I have another man. I see another man I like. I stay with this person. I have another child. Some women will have up to 12 children in this process. And all these 12 children are in different communities. And these other men she stays with did not pay her bride price, except one. All these other children belong to that first husband who paid her bride price. And they all bear his name. Okay, so what is the research method I want to employ? This research will be adopting the qualitative method that will use a historical approach and ethnographic survey. The history method will be based on oral, primary, and secondary sources. In conclusion, the indigenous concept of sex, sexual, and social relations is a peculiar practice among these unique folks in the Edda community since the pre-colonial era till date. But with the touch of westernization and cultural contact, this factor has evolved, and there is an indelible mark on the understanding of sex and sexual relationship among the Edda people. In the face of cultural globalization, this paper seeks to analyze the indigenous concept of sex and sexual relationship among the Edda people during this period till date, using the available ethnographic piece of literature and other emerging issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chechi, for that. That's exactly the reason why I put on this panel to see if these are similar or they are different. Like there are another place in Anambra around where is this Omo Aziz or something like that. What is it called? They have this kind of situation. The next village, just that Aziz. If you're a young girl, you know there are illegal land. If you are pregnant without being married, there are certain places where it's marriage will be difficult to arrest it. In most cases, even any man can come and marry you. And in this matter, you don't have say because you've already assumed you've defined yourself. But fortunately, I found that in this community, that as a young girl, to get pregnant is a sort of honor. That if you are still in your father's house and you're able to inherit up to 3, 4, 5 children, that is something of an honor that when a man decides to marry you, the man, he will be married quickly. Because when the man will come and pay your bride, the man will take all the children. So when the man takes all the children, the next thing is that when you marry, they'll be asking you as a man, hey, how many children? How many children? So people say like 3, 4, they will be everybody praising you because oh, you were married. But when you come home, you went and married a single lady, they'll see that it's the Lucy. How to get so it's something that's preventing back to
Serious.
and this type of idea, even though there are some people here, in Igbo land, if a man you marry a person, you have issues with the man, you can move. You can stay with another man sexually. But if the man, there is a schedule of rights. If another man comes, the first husband will say, pay the bride. The woman has to turn the bride price to the first husband. But if you did not return your bride price, if you have 10 children, it belongs to the man. If you have 20 children, it belongs to the first husband. Except in Usuka Arabia, except one particular community. They will never start any child not from their loins. They will never. If you are a daughter and you get pregnant, the child must go back. Whether the father says that is responsible for us, that child must go back to the father. But if the man should come to Lagos and have an affair with the romantic, and there's a baby that brother, when that anything, whenever that child they big, he must place the father go. Whether whatever they did, I will draw the child back to go. I don't know, but these are some of the things there. So this is an interesting aspect of because I know that my research is on women being punished for engaging in extramarital.
There's even a clause. There is something attached to it. Like, let's say a man, your wife stays with another man and gives birth in that man's house. Your husband will go to the man's house with gifts. Yes, for having a child, and let's say if you want the wife to come back, like you want your wife actually desires to come back to you, instead of coming back to you, no, it's not done that way. There's a traditional way of doing. You, the man, will buy gifts too, and still go back to welcome the woman back, and there will be traditional stores that will be done to welcome spiritually to bring the woman back. Then you buy gifts for her to welcome her back with any things with children there to bring back, come back home with the children. So most times you see the family, you have many children in the house, but you will never know that they're not from the same father.
But my question to you now is this: in terms of inheritance, what happens?
Most times, if there is bond and love, the man that got married to the woman shares his inheritance, if there is. But I want to really know. That's why I said it's an ongoing research. What will happen in such families where there is no love, where there is no unity among the children?
And another thing you have to look into is this: in families where the man died suddenly and he was not able to share the property, what happens among the children? And in most cases, when we have this contest for inheritance, is usually where there is money. If the man is poor, nobody cares. You go and fend for yourself. But once the man has one or two things down there, there will be katakata everywhere. So that's it. I like. Please, I like. Okay, you are still asking a question.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm trying to understand the relation the word I'm writing here, where the materialist aspect of rearing animals, where you take a male animal to impregnate female, and all these things are in a bid to have more animals. And for me, I see it from a materialist aspect. And then, what she's saying is making me think about the materialism associated with the liberty of sexuality, where a woman is asked to procreate for the benefit of patriarchy, for the benefit of the man. Maybe at the end of the day, the man has more kids, more female kids where he will collect bride price. He has more kids to be his own. So it's not a question per se, but I'm asking you to consider the materiality and the function of seeing women as a kind of from a production perspective, where they produce raw materials in terms of giving birth to these kids who belong to the man, and these kids, in quote, in some parts like you assumed, doesn't belong to the woman. It belongs to the man in some cases who paid the bride price. So do you see it from that angle, that this thing has to do with what Kamas may call the materialist culture of production? And does it have also anything to do with gender exploitation when it comes to, because some people may think it's sexual liberty. Some people may think it's sexual liberty. The woman is free to do whatever she wants to do, meet whoever she wants to meet. She's free. But when you interrogate this system closely, you realize that it has to do with production. Production for who? Thank you.
This particular culture is matrilineal. Yes. The children belong to you as a woman.
Okay.
Not to, and most times this material nature is most times the man even leaves the taking care of maybe
you want to take care of the kids. Even today, they still do it. It is the family of the woman that takes care of the children. The man doesn't have any issue at all, because even if they ask you who is your, they will not. It's not. They are not. We are not patrilineal per se in that particular community. It is the community is more of matrilineal.
So the mother collects the bride price.
No, still the men that also collect the bride price, but we are all matrilineal. That's the intricacy that I want to actually understand
That's
better.
what I'm asking you to look at. If it is matrilineal and to declaring peace, and then at the end of the day, the man still collects the bride price, and you claim that the man. I think you should also be.
Okay, let's look at that.
Yeah, what I want to ask, because I'm looking at the Igbo culture and I'm trying to understand, because I know that Igbo men have some kind of, all right, because I'm looking at it from the lineal Igbo culture. And now you are saying that that should be, I think it's a half year or whatever, have that matrimonial, either or closer to a half year then, all right? So there, if it is it says if it is matrilineal, like you say, does it mean that the woman pays the bride price when it comes to marriage, or they don't have the bride price system? And then another thing is this, because somebody mentioned the issue of where, I mean, I think you are the one that said where there is love. I'm trying to imagine a situation where a woman will leave a man and go to another man to stay, and I see love. All right, for the man now to want to go back, give a gift to bring her back, whether the woman is the queen of beauty or whatever. I'm just trying to imagine the mentality of the men under that culture. You know what I'm saying? And then, I mean, if they have the responsibility of paying the bride price, and then they also now have to go and give gift to bring a woman they paid for. I mean, I'm not being, that's, so I'm really.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very beautiful presentations from all our presenters, very interesting section as well. I just want to add a very little idea to the whole conversation. Where I heard Dr. Obiani talked about the issue of most times women are the end of the punishment in terms of issues on these matters. I just want to de-Ibolize the conversation a little. Now, among the Ibibio of Akwa Ibom State, it is what is known as Ekpo Nkawo, right? It's a sort of traditional punishment or regulatory mechanism that, try to regulate extramarital affairs among the people. But in this sense, even when the woman goes out and engages in such, activities, it is the man who suffers and not the woman per se. It is the man who suffers, especially if the woman is sleeping out with another man and is cooking for the man. So gradually the man falls ill and probably in most cases die. So it may not necessarily be the same thing in every part of Nigeria. There are very many exceptions. I don't want to go down into a fixed society as well, but I think that's just what I want to add to spice up the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to also say I've enjoyed this conversation from these ladies. When it comes to women, they are always very emotional about issues of gender and feminism. I thank God that none has ever used the word feminism as they were talking. They were particular about gender and then using the word women. I'm particularly concerned about the presentation made by Mrs. Mbalisi. Culture is dynamic, and women are always making us to believe, making the men, let me use that language now, believe that they are not given in parentheses, they're not given the opportunity to occupy the positions they want to occupy. And in most cases, we see that most of the times, the people that actually work against themselves are the women themselves. I want to use an example of what happened during the 2015 presidential election at Abuja, where you had Adigo Square, where Jonathan was vying, and then Mama Taraba was the only woman that was contesting against Jonathan from PDP. In that place, we had over 4,000 delegates in that town, out of which about 2,700 of them were women. Yeah, brought from so many places. You know, they know how to attend these campaigns. And then after the whole election, the primaries, the woman got one vote. Actually, the vote that the one she had for herself. And then, so that raises the fundamental question of who actually is to blame. Like, let's ask, is it the Wale or the gods?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. My question is probably the presenter may need to look at the aspect of polyandry, the difference and similarities between this system and polyandry. Because polyandry is just this act of marrying more husbands. Okay, that's the one. Two, I think there is a community in Nigeria also where women are used to entertain visitors in TV land. So when their wife will be given to the visitor whenever the visitor comes, and the implication is that if the visitor is the one that will see it as unethical, the host will not be so happy, and the following day they may drag the visitor out for not sleeping with their woman. So yes, so you may need to look at this also and find a way of integrating it if it is relevant at all. Thank you.
I have my question. My first question goes to Sekinat and Margaret. I missed some, but I had issue when with this kind of assertion that the best place to change or abolish outdated, that the women are the best people to abolish traditions that are affecting them. And when you say that, I wasn't quite comfortable with that. Number one, because of experiences and what I know. Number one, my research on gender sexuality, even though I've changed the title of the book for now, is that I found that in my research, the research has spanned, what is 5 years? It's more than 5 years. I found out that women are the agencies of perpetuating these outdated practices.
That's what we are saying. That's what we are saying. That's what we are saying, that they're the only ones that can change the status quo. Because not the affected, not the status quo, but the indigenous women of the nation. And I started to wonder, for example, there are some practices that okay, let me use the no, it's not even that. Help grow back. Let me help grow back, yes. Let me use the widowhood practices, okay? Speaking from a particular committee that I know, if I can mention, the group of people of Delta, yes. There are some funny practices that they make the widows do that I cannot believe that in this 21st century that is happening, right? A woman has lost her husband. Let's assume, where are we now? We are in Ibadan, right? We are in Lagos. We are in Lagos. We are in LSA, right? Yeah. So Ekwa, where we stay, assuming that the parents of the man that died are both from this part of Lagos. So this is where the father's compound is. Or the father's compound is in Ekwa, And this is where the mother's compound is. So the man is there. You make the woman to walk from Ekwa on foot and be crying. This cry I'm telling you about them is not the cry that you want to cry. But you have to cry it. It is not this way. The woman will come and be behind you, right? And it's something that witness. They'll be behind you. You'll be in front. You will raise the cry. Have you ever heard that? If you don't raise the cry, you'll be fine. This is why people will find you that you didn't cry well. And the cry will be assessed by the time you come from that place. Where are you crying to? You are crying to his mother's compound to inform them that their son is dead, as if they didn't know. I'm telling you, it is happening. A woman who has lost her husband, who is already distressed, you will make her go through that. She will work with those women. Then all the wives in that family, that is of the man's family, will follow you. Umada behind. Umada are there to assess whether you cry well or you don't cry well. If you don't cry well, that is one. That's why I'm saying that. The same Umada, I'm not completely condemning the indigenous men organizations. They have their good parts, right? Of making peace when there's problem, or if one is treated, and then maybe they feel the woman is treated, they try to make sure she gets her right for her. Family is taken away from her. They try to restore, knowing that that would probably be the only thing she may have to take care of her, the children that the man has left behind. Okay, but the same people, I'm just asking, what is the significance of that cry that should cry from that place and cry back? That's what. Then there's another practice, the same widow who practice, they will make bonfire in front of the house and make this house with the palm fronts. She will tell them and cry. She will raise the cry from 12 midnight till 5 a.m. She alone. And be crying. He shouts, she'll be praising that husband, whether he was a fine man, handsome man, whatever. She'll be saying all those things. She must cry. What is that supposed to mean? She will cook one food. Let me tell you, because I've seen it. She will cook one food. It's supposed to be porridge. She won't eat from it. Nobody will eat from it. But it has to be sweet. Because her mother will taste it. Then when she's done, they will dig a ground and bury the pots and cover. Nobody will eat from it. That is to separate her from the man. So I can see the single mirror. It is, to me, it's like extending her soul. Do you understand? Over time. So what are those kind of practices? What are they? Why are they still doing? And when these other people come, number one, if you were the time that was living in the city, you were not coming home as awful, so you don't attend meetings and all that. Good. Please, this kind of that happen. I am asking, at the end of the day, will you bring the man back? Will it help this woman to even recover from the loss that she has suffered? Things like that.
Okay, thank you. I think so to Mrs. Mbalisi, you used this woman. I watched that charade of APC during the last time. All of them, many people, they bought the tickets. Quite a huge number, and we were on strike. We are hungry. So, and they came. They will say, "I surrender to Asiwaju. I surrender to Asiwaju." Even if you look at Buhari's countenance, you will know that he was like, "Hey." So, okay, we have the bill. Not too young to run. The youth surrender to Asiwaju. We have the only woman. I was like, "Oh God, thank you." The woman came. After all the yaga, I am surrendering to Asiwaju. And maybe you say, so the problem is that I know that you need to read this book. I don't know why the Aisha Osori. If you are following Tony Tolola's this thing, Aisha always participates. Aisha wrote a book, Love Does Not Win Election. Aisha wanted to serve. Aisha did everything possible, but Aisha did not get the support of neither the men or the women that betrayed her. They stabbed her. Some women say that she did not come to worship them. So the problem is not actually the women, as Dr. Mbalisi said, the men, but in most cases, in women. The other day, the first time I wanted to be at the women's mentoring workshop, but I missed my flight. If not, I would have been there. The first person I met as a graduate assistant was a woman. I told her, please, I like you. I like the way you do everything. For over 15 minutes, I was in her office. She didn't talk to me. She was looking at me and see society developed then. She never said anything. Up to today, she has never said, this is a conference. It's a woman. So the problem actually is not whether the men are actually doing it. But the problem, like African tradition, we women are the enforcers of these rules. We are the one enforcing it. I went and asked, imagine my work on English tradition. If you get married, your mother-in-law will be the one that will take you to do that initiation that once a man she taught you amorous, you see them. And you will be behaving like this to say you are married. And you will be confessing. It's the woman that will, and I said, what do we do? Women that get to me that are, that's what I use the conception of then we are just seeing what I'm that are getting the 3 phases of the ancestors. They say the ancestors kill, but I feel that so the thing there is that, and again, you talk about Christianity. There is women in pre-contact Africa. There is certain traditional practices that subjugate women. Forget Doma, that they do this, they do that. When it comes to culture, they will show you another different color. That's why I say they are the enforcers. So whatever, we already have those things in pre-contact Africa. Christianity help us to do what? Reinforce it, including colonialism. So they helped us to reinforce it. So I want you to balance your argument on that. It's true that women will not even support women. We not even believe in ourselves. If you come out to contest for election, they will prefer the man because they thought he has a better brain than the woman. So I want you to, I'm interested in this, your work, and I want to read the full paper of this work. Uchechi, I'm still interested because I want us to do this work further. I want us to, because I've seen similar things. I want us to do it. My own book is my book that is coming up. So, but I want us to look at it further. That is exactly why I placed this thing. So I'm interested in this, your research, actually. And I want us to start changing the narrative. You need to read. I have that particular work. I got it from Aisha directly when she was in one of the conferences. So you read this book. It will help you in this to understand this is a first-class experience of a woman who wants to represent us in the National Assembly. And we women did not give her opportunity, and we expect the men to give her opportunity.
I mentioned the aspect of gender and I mentioned the tax rate.
So I think the campaign about this should start with us. Okay. The campaign on this should start. We women should start the campaign. Apart from that, we have the problem of ourselves. The day our mother-in-law will start loading. I read while I was doing literature research for my book. My book is Our Mothers Are Not Free, the English tradition. So what I find out that in India, you find out that because the problem is that because you suffered, your mother-in-law treated you bad, you want to bequeath it to your so the thing gives so the thing is like essentially so we keep perpetrating it. If we as the researchers should start it and should start campaign against it, that's why I prefer two people come out. I thought we are finished. Okay, yes, sir. Sir, thank you for your presentation. We are carried away, sir.
Yes. I want to just point out something. See, thank you. Sometimes, hello, sometimes some of these things are deeply ingrained in the traditions of people. Let me use the word traditions now because culture is dynamic, but most times traditions are man-made, and some communities see it as the only way of maintaining their identity, and they stick to it. But I want to point out some aspect of the work that Ms. Simbas mentioned in her work. There's this Omo and Neoma in Delta State, where the female king, I've once had a contact with that woman, given that she tries to project women as men. At a certain age, you dress like a man, you wear the red cap, you dress like a man, you break kola nut. And they have, she is there, she has what they call the Israeli council. And then they project the women that women can actually live as men. Not necessarily engaging in some of those traditional things, but projecting them so that you can become politically viable and contest for anything you want. That particular community in Delta State, in Anioma, is a replica of what, in fact, I did something on that. I said, replacing the Omo with the Omo and Neoma example. Because it appears the Omo thing is really where the problem is. It's they have some good parts, but when you meet them at burial grounds, you know that those people are something else. They are something else. I'm telling you the truth. So we could look at that Omo and Neoma as a template for using it to at least see if we can begin to change, advocate for change in some of those traditions that inhibit women. Thank you.
And when they go to their houses, you might have that one, we deal with them.
Yeah, I was trying to add to what Chinedu rightly said, because I have attended a workshop where we had a gender discussion like this, and the entire question was centered on the women. The women were just beating themselves on their inability to make things happen in their various homes against the tradition. But one person among them was quick to add that in her own community, that the women were able to put a stop to certain traditions that nobody ever thought that tradition could be ended. And she gave them some tip, like for instance, in their community, that all the women agreed, both married and unmarried, and the side chicks, all of them decided to lock up the other room. And they forced the men that unless this practice is put to an end, you will not enjoy the other room. And when the men found it difficult that they cannot do without it, they had to. Now the ancestor that they were saying is this, cannot do this. And the ancestor was later now bended and accepted it because something.
I will ask you about it. So I thank all of us for participating in this panel, and then present us.